So Fat Joe and Jadakiss have a podcast. It's called The Joe and Jada Show. Um, I'm letting y'all know right now. Me and my boy J Ro from the Alcoholics, we working on some things. We both out here in AZ together. You know what I mean? So I don't want nobody to think we biting nobody swag. You know what I'm saying? But rock and roll is the only thing that makes sense. You understand what I'm saying? So let's be on the lookout. So I've been hearing a lot of, I've been seeing the Joe and Jada podcast, clips floating around and all of that, and I've been hearing people been having kind of a negative, people been having a negative response to the show, and I only seen clips. I didn't watch the whole episode, so I'm not qualified to judge anything yet. I'm only speaking to the clips that I saw, right? And it seems like to me the people who are the most offended, or people who have the most negative criticism to say, are media like podcasters, vloggers, and stuff like that. People who cover hip hop, or people who it's a lot of people who eat in this space. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like you can't not to say that you should worry about what everybody thinks and all of that, but I'm just analyzing what's happening. Fat Joe said something along the lines of, Jadakiss, or somebody, who was it that asked the questions? Like, I think Fat Joe asked, how would him and Jada's podcast be different? Right? How they gonna stand out? And Jada's answer was something along the lines of authenticity. Because we really are the thing we talk about, is how I interpreted that, right? And Fat Joe started to, he interjected with like, yeah, because we've been through it. I'm paraphrasing, but along the line, Fat Joe said some things that triggered people. He was like, I'm not trying to hear nobody who hasn't been through the mud of what we, what we do. You ain't never got beat on your second half by a promoter, which means, in case you don't know, it's like, you go on tour, you do shows or whatever. Somebody book you for a show, they pay you a deposit up front, which is usually half. You get to the show whenever that date is, and they give you the second half after you perform, or when you get there. You understand what I'm saying? And sometimes they don't. You understand? They got an excuse to hit you with, you know what I'm saying? You in Alabama somewhere, you might have to struggle. It might get rough for you. You far away from home, dudes ain't trying to pay you, or dudes ain't got the money to pay you, or whatever. Situations have gotten very sticky for all of us who've been, who've been in the game and went through the trenches, right? So that's what Fat Joe was speaking to, right? And I understand what he was trying to say. Again, like, I know, like, I got a lot of angry comments in my comment section for understanding Fat Joe the last time he was in trouble with the peoples. But at the core of it, I get what he's saying. He brung up the whole Shaq and Kenny, and all of that. Why we appreciate their commentary more sometimes than we will appreciate Stephen A. Smith's commentary. I'm paraphrasing on what he said. You know what I mean? Yes, Stephen A. Smith never did it at that level. So, the players themselves will hear him critiquing and commentating on what they're doing, and sometimes he may cross lines or whatever, this, that, and the third. And it's like, nah, B, you don't know this. You ain't been in these trenches. So that's the way people feel, right? But that don't mean Stephen A. doesn't have a legitimate perspective, or that he don't deserve to have a perspective. You understand what I'm saying? Stephen A. Smith blew up because he's very observant and very entertaining. You understand what I'm saying? There's a space for that. If it wasn't no space for it, he wouldn't exist. You understand what I'm saying? But and it's like that with all of it. You know, with everything. You know what I'm saying? Like the source. Fat Joe mentioned the source. Like ever since the source, like niggas been, you know, it been niggas from outside of the culture commenting on the culture, and those commentaries steer the opinion of the culture. Sometimes I remember specifically when Cannabis' first album came out, one person plus the source. It was the source and one person that I knew and respected. They didn't like the album. I never listened to the album. This is the power of the pen and the word of mouth. You understand what I'm saying? So I get it, right? So what Fat Joe was saying, nah, B, leave it up to. He's saying people want to hear it from us, which is right. People do it. They're like, oh, you really been here. Most of them on all of my videos right here. You know which vlogs do the best numbers for me? When I talk about something or someone that I'm actually connected to. Even if it's like the era of hip hop, like if I like, you know what I'm saying, like I talked about the Old Dirty Bastard documentary that came out. You know what I'm saying? Like they know I knew Old Dirty. You understand what I'm saying? The Buckshot situation. It was that they know I'm plugged into the situation. And plus it was a negative situation. You understand what I'm saying? So they want to, you know, the more, you know, certain things will invisibly grant you qualification. Like if you've been there, you know these niggas, you a part of that, you from that, you know. So Fat Joe is you experienced it, you actually went through the mud and the, you know, a lot of y'all will say that this rapper is trash, right? Or you might say you don't like this rapper. A lot of the new rappers, right? A lot of the old rappers, whatever. A lot of the battle rappers. But a rapper usually has a different opinion on that rapper. You understand what I'm saying? Or y'all might think one is dope and the rappers think it's trash. You understand what I'm saying? So on and so forth. So there is a real value in the experienced talking about the thing, right? But then he went right on to say that, yeah, I don't want to hear no. I don't want to. I'm not trying to hear. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if it's his exact words. I'm not trying to hear you if you ain't went through this. Blah 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 blah. But before that, in other clips, he's talking about sports, and he didn't do that. Like he didn't do sports professionally. So you being a hypocrite. You understand what I'm saying? And that's when it come down to like the online, this internet space, they love that. They love hypocrisy. The smallest amount of hypocrisy, they on your ass. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure everybody, I personally believe that we're all hypocritical at some point. You understand what I'm saying? We all do something, but depending on circumstances, we might do the opposite of the thing that we always, you know, that we say we always gonna do. It's only a few. I think we all only have a few concrete policies. Like I'm not never doing that. A lot of other things are subject to how much they paying or what's at stake. You know what I'm saying? Is my life on the line? So on and so forth. You know what I mean? But so yeah, as far as how I feel about what Fat Joe said, I get what he's saying. I partially agree, actually. You understand what I'm saying? But I don't agree with the fact that nobody wants to hear it coming from other people. You understand what I'm saying? Because, you know, I mean, we all have an opinion. You know, so we all judge things that we aren't knowledgeable in. You know what I'm saying? We judge everything down to the clothes we wear, to the food we eat, to the, you know what I'm saying, to the car we buy, whatever it is. It's like, we don't know how to make that shit, but we could tell you whether we like it or not, and most of the times we can tell you why. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, so that's the basis of it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully I did the topic justice. You know, I don't completely disagree with Fat Joe, but he went wrong where he said, I'm not trying to, ain't nobody trying to hear that. You understand? And because the truth is, yes, some people are trying to hear that. You know what I mean? And secondly, the hypocrisy is blatant when it comes to that because of the accidental hypocrisy. Because if you just now went on and talked about the Knicks, you know what I'm saying? You went on and talked about what's the dude? Shador, what's her name? I have these brain farts every once in a while. Coach Prime's son, man. Damn, I can't think of his last name right now. But yeah, you speaking about those things. You ain't never been in a football, locker room or NFL locker room, or maybe you have, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? So they gonna look at you like you crazy for saying that. Like, oh, so we shouldn't be. Anyway, what y'all think? My personal position or my personal opinion on the podcast itself is I'm gonna give it time. I feel like Jada and Joe need to build more chemistry. Like I don't feel like the chemistry is flowing all the way yet. You understand what I'm saying? But as far as takes that every podcast gonna have takes we don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? And every podcast that I see that got multiple hosts, co-hosts, and all of that, it's somebody in there that's wild that one of the cast members, the crowd, the audience is going to disagree with a lot. Maybe that's Joe for this. Joe already go through that. People call him Cap Joe and all of that narrative and all of that. Maybe he just going to lean into that. You know what I'm saying? And he'll be the bad guy and Jada will be the good guy. But they got to practice. They got to get some reps in. Made it to the end of this video. Let me get 4 cameras. Rock on, rock on.